Long Island is the kind of place you picture when you think of normal. It's quiet suburbs, well-kept lawns, commutes, PTA meetings, summer traffic on the way to the beach. And then, in summer of 2010, a cop's dog runs into the brush near Gilgo Beach and finds a body. And then another, and then another, and then another.
Here, 3 more sets of human remains found along a beach on Long Island. This is the same general area where 4 sets of remains, you remember, they were found last fall.
Oh, it wasn't a burial site. It was a dumping ground. 4 women, wrapped in burlap, all discarded within about 500 feet of each other. It would take over a decade before anybody was arrested. And even then, we still don't really know how deep it goes. So if this all sounds familiar, you might have seen this case on Netflix, or maybe you read about it in the news when the arrest happened in 2023. But what a lot of these stories don't show is just how long everything went ignored, how many warnings were missed, how the victims were treated, and how the guy who was finally arrested might only be a part of that mystery. This isn't just a headline recap, this is everything that fell through the cracks. This is the story of the Gilgo Beach murderer, also known as the Long Island serial killer. Welcome to Times Crimes. The story all begins in December of 2010, when a Suffolk County police officer named John Malia was out with his canine partner searching for a missing woman, Shannon Gilbert. So Shannon was a 24-year-old sex worker who had gone missing a few months earlier after a bizarre 911 call and a panicked sprint through a gated community near Oak Beach.
911 system.
These people are trying to kill me.
Do you need the police?
No, you bastard, please!
Now, the area they were searching, it wasn't exactly scenic. It was this weird narrow strip of overgrown brush that had lined this desolate highway on the way to Gilgo Beach. And that's where the dog found her. Except, it wasn't Shannon. It was Melissa Bartholomew. A few days later, they found 3 more bodies. Megan Waterman, Amber Lynn Costello, and Maureen Brainerd Barnes. 4 women, all under 30, all sex workers, wrapped in burlap, all dumped within a stone's throw away from each other. The area had become, without anybody realizing it, a graveyard. So investigators widened their search. And over the course of the next few months, they managed to find 6 more sets of remains. Some were full skeletons, others were just skulls or body parts. Some were new, some were older. Some had matched previous missing persons reports, others didn't.
Does become more gruesome every time we get an update. As you mentioned, this afternoon the police found 3 more bodies. This brings the count to 8. They don't really know exactly what's happened here.
This was no longer just a serial killer case. It was a logistical nightmare, and it raised a very specific, disturbing question. Was this one killer or several? The answer still isn't clear, but let's back up a little bit. The first 4 victims, the Gilgo 4, they had a lot in common. Same profession, same physical features, same location, and even the same method of disposal. So that consistency is what made law enforcement pretty confident that they were killed by the same person. But others, that's where it gets messy. Some of the victims were dismembered. Some might have been killed years earlier. One of them was even found 45 miles away. One's body was in one spot and the head was in another. It's not exactly subtle. And it started to look like more than one predator may have been using that same stretch of land. So you would think that finding a serial killer dumping ground would have sparked immediate, coordinated action. But the truth is, it didn't. Between jurisdiction overlap, slow communication, and a general lack of urgency, progress stalled almost immediately after it started. The Suffolk County Police Department even declined FBI help for years, a decision that, in hindsight, didn't age very well. And look, it's easy to Monday morning quarterback and second guess these things after the fact. However, it's also fair to say that when the victims are women and they're working in this particular line of work, the response isn't always what it should be. And that's not about politics, that's about patterns. And in this case, the pattern was missed chances and too much time that was lost. And honestly, for years, it felt like the case had just gone cold. Until 2022.
Since 2022, the Gilgo Beach Homicide Task Force has used New York State, local and federal enforcement agencies to try and solve these cases. 10 bodies that were found along Ocean Parkway on Long Island.
In early 2022, a new task force had been formed. And this time, it was a real collaboration between local police, state officials, and even the FBI. And they did something that the original team had never actually managed to do. They followed the data. one of the key details came from cell phone records. So back in 2009 and 2010, the killer had used burner phones to contact some of the victims. Now, the calls were short, direct, and basically untraceable. But the phones, they had to ping off towers. So investigators mapped those pings out and overlaid them with another set of data: vehicle movements, surveillance, and known residents that were in the area at that time. And one name started to surface: Rex Heuermann, a 59-year-old architect that was living in Massapequa Park. It was just a 20-minute drive down the street from Gilgo Beach. Now, Rex wasn't really the guy you would expect. He owned a Manhattan-based architecture firm. He commuted into the city, he had a wife, 2 kids. He even played bass in a band in the 90s. His neighbors even called him quiet. Maybe a little weird, but nothing too alarming. But he also had burner phones. Multiple. And when investigators matched his known location data to the cell tower activity from the killer's calls, it lined up almost exactly. Come to find out, he had also searched for Gilgo Beach victims, how to dispose of a body, and why do serial killers get caught. Not exactly the kind of thing you'd expect from your neighborhood architect. So in July of 2023, he was arrested and charged with the murders of Melissa Bartholomew, Megan Waterman, and Amber Costello.
Last Thursday night, July 13th, when the Massapequa Park resident reached the end of the block, you see a number of agents in dark suits make the arrest.
He was then later charged with Maureen Brainerd Barnes' death as well. And here's the chilling detail. He allegedly kept trophies from at least one of the victims. It was hair that was hidden in a vault in his own house with his family, all while just living this quiet suburban life. So the arrest of Rex Heuermann felt like a breakthrough, and it is, for sure. But it also raises some questions. Heuermann had been tied to the Gilgo 4, but what about the other victims? The dismembered bodies, the partial remains that had been scattered throughout the marshes. They hadn't been connected to him, yet, anyway. So either this man's MO changed dramatically over time, or there might be more than just one killer. Either way, it's super unsettling. Also, in the case of Shannon Gilbert, the woman that they were originally looking for when the bodies were found still remains unsolved. She wasn't one of the Gilgo 4, and her cause of death is still disputed. Some say it was accidental drowning, and others believe that she was murdered. And understandably, her family has never accepted the accidental drowning theory.
It doesn't matter if people think that she's a victim of the Long Island serial killer or not. Something happened to her that night. She ran for her life. She was in fear.
It's just one more mystery that's wrapped up in a case that already seems to be overflowing with them. The Gilgo Beach case is a reminder of how easy it is to miss something, even something horrifying. And when people involved don't necessarily get the attention that they deserve. And look, these women were not famous, they weren't wealthy, and they worked in this particular line of work, which made it a lot easier for their disappearances just to be brushed aside, or even dismissed as isolated incidents. And in that fine space between assumption and action, somebody took advantage. And look, this is not about blaming every officer, blaming law enforcement, Monday morning quarterbacking, nothing like that. But this is about recognizing the cost of hesitation, miscommunication, and even delay. Because whoever did this, clearly it operated for years, and the signs were obviously there. Some were missed, some were ignored. And to be honest with you, some probably still haven't been found. So yeah, Gilgo Beach, the quiet suburb with a very loud secret. A killer, or maybe killers, who knows, used it as their personal dump site for over a decade. And while one man has in fact been arrested, a lot of the story still feels unfinished. There's too many bodies, there's too many gaps, and too many people who just stopped looking. Look, cases like this, they don't get solved in 60 minutes. Sometimes they don't even get solved at all, but it still doesn't mean that they should be forgotten. So hey, if you did like this one, hit like, subscribe, and drop a comment down below with your theory. Or let me know if you want to go into a deeper dive on a case like this or something else. And also, if you haven't checked out the Netflix documentary, head over there, check it out, because they also go into a lot of detail that I couldn't get into in this quick little 10-minute video. My name's Trev, and this is Times Crimes. And remember, the past doesn't rest easy, but we're here to make sure it doesn't get away with anything either. See you in the next one.